Yeah, so overall, it should not be tolerated. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Natalie and I'm a nurse practitioner. I typically post content to motivate others to get into nursing, to level up their lives, to live their most soft life. And it's only right that I am totally transparent as I take you on my life journey. So I do post a lot of content about the benefits or the highlights of nursing, how it has transformed my life, how it's been so transformative in my life, how I've been able to elevate my life mentally, spiritually, financially, and essentially you see it pretty much all over social media how, nursing is a very rewarding. But I just wanted to discuss some of the downsides or some of the dark truths about nursing, and to basically just share my story. It's only right that I share the challenges that I have, because in most journeys to success, or in any journey that you embark on, you do have challenges. My first year in nursing was met with quite a huge challenge. Nursing can be toxic and nurse bullying is very real. Obviously, depending on where you work, the culture of your unit or the facility that you work in, you may or may not experience the toxicity head on, or you may not experience nurse bullying head on. But unfortunately for me, my first year of nursing was met with great toxicity and great bullying. Yeah, it was quite intense. And it is unacceptable. It should never happen. And unfortunately, it does happen. Bullying can take place pretty much within the workplace among various people you work with. So it could be your coworker, a fellow nurse, a manager. And there should be zero tolerance. Like, you should not have to tolerate bullying. It is totally unacceptable. But when I graduated nursing school, I graduated in 2014. When I embarked on my nursing career, I graduated high school in 2010. At that time, we had weathered, politically we had weathered, or economically we had weathered a recession. And basically, going to college was pretty much a gamble, or it didn't guarantee you job security or guarantee you a high paying job. When I graduated high school and I was going to college, there was this crisis of students graduating college and not being able to secure a job, and being pretty much met with a lot of student loans, and it was quite the conundrum or dilemma. So when I went into college, I had to pretty much figure out what I was going to do to make sure that I had that I didn't end up in that dilemma, that I had job security. So nursing was one of the better options for me. I did graduate school 2014 as a registered nurse. Although I chose a career that did offer some job security, there was a hiring freeze that happened at that time. There was a nursing shortage, but they weren't hiring. So it was really odd. Just creating a nursing job after college was like gold. It was like a gold mine, because the options just wasn't there, especially with no experience. To train nurses is very expensive. Although hospitals and facilities and nursing facilities or medical facilities had a shortage in staff, they were just not as willing to train, or maybe they lacked the funds to really train nurses. So they were very selective on the hiring process. Yes, you are marketable because you're a nurse, but because you're not an experienced nurse, it was kind of a drawback. So fast forward, I was able to land a job. It wasn't the ideal facility that I went to. It wasn't one of the top hospitals in New York City, but I was just so happy to just get my experience. And the goal was essentially to get your experience, get your year experience. Then once you have a year under your belt, you're more marketable. Hospitals will see you as more of an asset than a cost, because you come with experience. The training is cheaper, it's quicker, and they can pretty much transition you into their system seamlessly, at least from their point of view. The hospital I was working in is in Queens, and I wanted to work in the city with the bigger, larger hospitals that have, magnet status, are more renowned, just known to provide top tier care. So I'm working in this hospital in Queens. The bullying was real. The toxicity was real. And unfortunately, they prey on the weakest link. So my story with bullying, it was not from a coworker, but it was actually from my manager. Nursing in itself is a very stressful job. It's a very demanding job. And nurses tend to work short staff. The patients demand and acuity are high, and as a new nurse, that's quite stressful. And you also have to, you're honing in on your skills. You're trying to learn how to triage, learn how to prioritize, learn how to delegate. There's so much that you're learning as a new nurse that it is stressful. It's manageable, but it's stressful, to be quite honest. And the last thing you need is to feel bullied or feel like you're in a very unhealthy or toxic environment. It just doesn't help you. It doesn't help your patients. It doesn't help the goal. It doesn't help morale. It doesn't help patient outcomes. It doesn't help the reputation of the hospital. It doesn't help at all. It's just no good. The work environment should be healthy. There's certain things, as much as you can control it, there's certain things you can't control, like a patient crashing or staffing and the strain that it may cause on the unit and on the staff. But as far as being respectful, as far as and having a healthy work environment, that is very imperative. I feel like people should feel comfortable, people should feel inclusive, people should feel respected and safe in their work environment at the very bare minimum. I think this is regardless of how you look, your gender, your background, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation. And just as much as we advocate for, much as there is a zero tolerance for sexual harassment, as much as being very respectful and being politically correct when you are addressing these peers and your patients, there needs to be the same energy and weight and the same respect when it comes to, and accountability when it comes to bullying, in my opinion. So basically, I had a manager that was very abrasive. She was very abrasive, very aggressive, verbally aggressive, very abrasive and disrespectful. Like when addressing you or speaking to you, her tone was inappropriate. Sometimes she would yell and scream and it was just very unpleasant, very embarrassing for onlookers, like patients and their family members and other members of the interdisciplinary healthcare team. Very embarrassing to have an interaction with her in a public space or in the hallway, because she was just very rude, just to say it flat out. Something when they say it's not what you say, but how you say it. Her how you say it was just horrible. Like her delivery was very aggressive, very abrasive, and it was quite accepted. Like that aggressiveness and abrasiveness and inappropriate way of speaking to people did not start with me. You would see like physical therapists, doctors, other nurses that been there for years, and they would literally kind of like roll their eyes or kind of give you that nonverbal indication that, oh, it's her acting like this again, like as if it was somewhat accepted, which I thought was like it was very astonishing to me. So off the bat, that was like a big red flag. When someone is interacting with you, they're not saying profanity, they're not using curse words, but their tone and their delivery and their socialization with you is disrespectful and makes you feel small. That doesn't help foster a healthy work environment, and then it doesn't help build a healthy manager to worker relationship, because either you're going to accept it or you're going to stand up for yourself. It just doesn't foster a good interaction at all. I found myself kind of avoiding speaking to her, only going to her when it's absolutely necessary. I didn't want anyone disrespecting me or yelling at me. So already off the bat, I'm trying to avoid my manager, which is not good. There's a chain of command that you follow. But even in cases where there's something that your manager has to handle, for me, I just didn't want to go to her because I just felt like I don't want to deal with that negative energy at all. Number one, the way she spoke and her delivery, her communication was very disrespectful, and it was never challenged by not even senior nurses. Like it was just like, it was kind of like it felt like very totalitarian, like as if it is what it is, we're just going to accept it, move on. And when you're a new person, new member on the block or a new nurse, like it's kind of like you do what when in Rome you do what the Romans do, even if it's not correct. She definitely weaponized being a manager. I'm gonna give two quick scenarios that essentially just kind of like broke my nursing spirit. So basically, in the hospital you have quality improvement and performance quality improvement teams. QI, quality improvement, the whole team, to make sure that you are, meeting your nursing best practices and following within the policies of the hospital, and to minimize hospital acquired incidences. In this quality improvement, there's a member from the team that comes around and checks central lines. So essentially your central line should be clean, dry, and intact, dated, and pretty much up to date to help reduce central line associated infections. So I remember one day, it was snowing. So there was some weather issue. I think a little bit of snow. My manager had a lot of call outs. So nursing office called me, not her, the nursing office called me and asked me if I can come in and do overtime because they were extremely short. And I said, sure. I lived maybe like a 15-minute drive from my hospital. It was close to proximity. It's extra money. Why not? Let's do it. So when I get on the unit, my manager was kind of like, I guess since she's not the one that called me, I don't know, she kind of looked at me like, what are you doing here? But I'm like, nursing office called me, they asked me to help. And she's like, oh, okay. She was just like, okay. So once I got to the nursing station, I got my report. I'm, gathering myself, I didn't start the normal time. I'm late. I have to, get the report, settle in. But I just needed time to kind of review everything and kind of get my bearings together, to go assess my patients and, get everything collected. So immediately, maybe like less than like 20 minutes into my shift, and I didn't even get to round on my patients yet, my manager comes to me and she's like, oh, my patient in bed 12's central line looks so disgusting. I'm going to have to write you up for it. And I'm just like, what? Your immediate response is to write me up because a central line is dirty, and I didn't even get a chance to assess my patients. So for me, it was just such a slap in the face. Once I got report, I got time to see that all my patients were alive and breathing, like a brief kind of, hello, I'm going to be a nurse, I'll come back. The immediate course of action is to just write me up. Like, it was, I don't know, it just really broke my morale, my spirit. And it's just like, why help, or why try to help my teammates and your unit, if you're going to try to penalize me and bully me and build a case against me. And I didn't even get the chance or the time to assess my patient. So that was one, specific scenario that I experienced with her that really just let me know that I'm going to be here for a very short time, like not a day over the year, because year requirement, because like you're essentially out to get me. Like, you want to build a case against me so you can potentially fire me, or build a case against me so that you can manipulate me, or just make me out to be a incompetent or negligent nurse. So aside from trying to avoid my manager, who I should feel comfortable going to troubleshoot any type of issues that are that are within the chain of command, now there's a sense of distrust. There's a sense of disappointment and hurt that you would try to manipulate me or discredit me in that way. At this point, I need the hospital more than they need me. Like, I need my year experience. I need my year experience. I need to get my resume together before I can leave. But I believe at that point, I realized that I cannot stay here. It's not safe for me to stay here. I'm a new nurse. I'm still, learning. Humans make mistakes. You will make some form of mistake. And I just felt like this environment was not the best environment to learn. It was not the best environment to grow. It was such a punitive driven unit. Instead of remediation, it was punishment. I felt like it was the best for me to leave. If you knew I came in for overtime, you knew that I was late, and you see that dressing is dirty. I feel like the approach could have been different. Like, Natalie, I know you came in, you're a little bit late. I'm sure you're trying to get everything together. Can you just prioritize getting to that first? You know, as long as, you know, your other patients are stable, X, Y, and Z. So I feel like those teachable moments and the room for growth and learning was just not there. It was just like punishment for or consequences that are extenuating consequences, or very like egregious, like, you're gonna write me up, like. And in nursing, writing someone up can mean that they cannot, if they want to go to the ICU for more acuity, for more experience, they cannot do that. Or they won't be easily granted to do that. So yeah, I feel like she was trying to build a case against me, and I was able to quickly identify that and realize that it was time for me to, you know, just have a plan to execute so that I can leave and not potentially lose my license or potentially be fired and have that on my record. As a new nurse, as you're assimilating and transitioning and getting more seasoned, and you know, just kind of creating your own routine, the last thing you want to do is get a phone call from work. So, and your first thing you wonder is like, oh my God, did I forget to do something? Did something happen to a patient? As a new nurse, that paranoia is real. Like, it's super real. So the last thing you want is to get that kind of phone call. So I'm sitting at home one day from work, and I get a phone call from my assistant head nurse, and I'm like, why is my assistant head nurse calling me? My assistant head nurse essentially called me telling me that I need to watch my back. The nurse manager called her, basically complaining about me, making allegations, you know, just basically saying that I'm not a good nurse. A lot of defamation of character. I don't know if she doesn't like me, and that, you know, I don't know if she said I need to be fired, but essentially she made complaints about me. And the head nurse basically, you know, because everyone knew this lady was pretty problematic, and just basically she put me on my P's and Q's and said, listen, you really have to watch your back, you have to cross your T's, dot your I's, if, as they say, because this lady doesn't like you, and you know, you are on her radar. So the immediate question was why? Like, why? What did I do? And the assistant head nurse just had no answer. She's like, you didn't do anything. You didn't really have to do anything. It's kind of like, she is who she is. If she doesn't like you, that's just how she is. As much as I was very grateful and thankful for the heads up, you know, it broke me. Like, just very disheartened. Like, it was just, you know, just the whole nursing journey to even get to become a nurse was challenging, right? You get into college, you get into nursing school, you weather nursing school, you graduate, you pass your NCLEX, and you finally embark on this nursing journey, your nursing role in the workplace, and you know it's going to be met with challenges. And, you know, a lot of the challenges, like I said, is, you know, organization, time management, patient care, delegation, interacting with the interdisciplinary team, coordinating care, advocating for your patients. There's so much that you have to do, you know, and then while maintaining a safe environment for your patient. Why am I being picked on? Or why do I have to also do that while watching my back? As a new nurse, that's learning so much. So, and it's also very unsafe, because if I have certain questions that I don't know because I'm a new nurse, I may, you know, I most likely won't feel comfortable coming to you with them. So basically that pretty much tore me. And then what made it even worse is this person essentially looked like she can be my aunt or my cousin, even my mother. Like, she was maybe a little bit older than my mom, but she was Caribbean. She looked like she could be an aunt, someone that would cheer me on and encourage me to be nursing, someone that should be, you know, encouraging, supportive. You know, I just didn't get that from her. You know what I mean? So it was quite the dilemma. And a lot of the senior nurses, they would tell you like, oh, what she's doing is wrong, it's unacceptable, but they stood quiet. They never said anything. They didn't, no one wanted to ruffle feathers. Just like, it is what it is, deal with it. That was basically their response. So it got bad enough to the point where I was hired as a part-time employee. I was working full-time hours for months, and she did not want to hire me as a full-time manager, a full-time employee, which obviously would make sense because, you know, as a full-timer, you get benefits, you're in the union, etc., etc. And she was basically, when I went to her to approach her about it, she basically denied me. Basically, I had to follow the chain of command, go above her, provide proof, go to her manager, provide proof that I've been working full-time hours for months, that I should be, you know, transitioned into or enrolled into as a full-time employee. And that's basically how I was able to enroll or be, that's how I gained eligibility or status as a full employee, is by going over her head. So this lady just basically wanted to rob me of a lot of my basic rights as a nurse. Like, she just wanted it to be hell for me. It was really bad. And that's why it's important to know your policy, know your rights, because if you don't know it, you will be taken advantage of. And if I didn't know, I would be taken advantage of. And luckily, in this hospital, we did have the union. You know, how strong the union is and how effective it can be could be a little subjective. But we did have a union. And once I became a full-time employee, I was eligible to have my union represent me. Whenever she wanted to speak to you about something, whether it was good or bad, she would have this thing where she's like, come to my office. And she would say it in such a derogatory way that it made it seem like you were wrong or you're in trouble. And she would do it in the open space so loudly and rude in front of doctors, in front of physical therapists, and in front of, you know, PCAs, transporters. And it would make you feel as though you're incompetent or you did something wrong. It was just so derogatory. When I was in school, I can count maybe once or twice or never, or maybe once, that I ever went to the principal's office. It felt like going to the principal's office for doing something bad, and that was just so not my character. So it just made me feel less than, you know what I mean? Like, why are you calling me to your office? And it could be something as simple as a schedule change, something schedule related. I remember a patient coded. Luckily, I documented well, coded shortly after coming from the emergency room. Luckily, we were able to revive her and she went back to the ICU, but she wanted to know about that situation. Come to my office. Like it was just any simple thing. It was just, I don't know. It was just not a good time. It was just not a good time in my life. And I remember when a nurse told me, my assistant head manager, you know, because I was young at the time, I was only 22, and she said, oh my God, you're so young, you know, you're still living home with your parents. She's just like, wow, if I were you, I would just quit. Like, I would not deal with this. Like, this is just too much. And I felt like that was such a bad response. Like, I feel like that's how accepted and normalized her behavior was. Like, instead of getting rid of the problem, removing the toxicity or addressing the toxicity, it's like, quit your job. Like, what? And I did a video where I talked about when I gave nursing advice and how the battle to become a nurse is so the nursing school journey is so challenging. And I feel like because it's so challenging, because it's such a difficult degree to get, and it's met with, you know, challenges academically and socially, you don't easily walk away from it. And I feel like that is and that's a prime example of why you wouldn't walk away from it. Because even though I was enduring these horrors in the workplace, I knew I worked hard for my degree. I knew I wanted my degree because I sacrificed and worked this hard for it. I'm not just going to walk away from it. Not happening. Like, I need my livelihood. I need my finances. I need financial security, and I need experience, and my patients need me. So why should I quit? Like, what? So I was just like, no, that's crazy. And you know, and that's how silent everyone stood, knowing how unacceptable and how horrific and how gruesome and how egregious her behavior was. You get what I'm trying to say? It was just horrible. And when you're the weakest link, it's just like, yeah, it's just not great. So the final straw was one day. Obviously, I would take a lot of my stresses of work home and I would discuss with my parents, and they just didn't understand why she was acting like this towards me. But anyway, I went home to my parents, and the morning my mom texts me, and she's just like, oh, just I hope you have a good day. Like, just try to focus on, don't pay it any mind. Just, just try to have a good day. And maybe like an hour later, she asked me to sign. I forgot what she was trying to write me up for, but essentially how they build a case against you is you have to sign it. Like, because we had a union, they can't just write you up and call it a day. They have to write that they discussed it with you. They gave you a verbal, whatever. So I refused to sign it, or I refused to sign it without union representation. And she told me to go home. Like, she literally told me to leave the building and go home. So I immediately panicked, and I texted my mom, and my mother was like, oh no, like, you do not move a muscle. Like, you are not in this lady's house. You are at an establishment. This is not her establishment. She's like, you need your union. And my mother was like, don't worry, I'll be right there.
In the profile on the Gary report, you'll find Bernadine, I'm in a meeting.
And I was just like, I was just like, okay, bye. And I think I basically went to like my charge nurse, and I'm like, and everyone knew she was bullying me. And I was like, she told me to go home. And they were like, no, just go down to they said, oh, just reach out to the union, etc. Don't leave. So basically, to cut a long story short, my mother did end up coming to the hospital. She went to the nursing office with all the nursing administrators, and she was basically telling them, like, I don't understand what's going on here, XYZ. My daughter came here to work. They're telling her to go home. What's going on here? This is just very unacceptable. And then, like, she just did that and left. But I ended up not leaving. The union came, and I think the union rep said that, I have to sign. I honestly, I cannot remember what the grievance was, but he basically said that I have to sign it. So I didn't even really have that much faith in the union, because I felt like they didn't really advocate for me. But I ended up just signing it and just realizing that I have to be very careful moving forward. In this whole environment of being bullied and being in this very uncomfortable circumstance, I did attempt to follow my chain of command. So I did reach out to the director of nursing. I did reach out to some of the higher ups, and their response was either, okay, I'll take care of it with nothing being done, and one director even told me, like, if you're not happy here, you can go somewhere else. Like, that is how the management was. So it's as if everyone just condoned her behavior, and there was just no systems in place or no checks and balances to rectify the situation and to prevent it in the future. Some days I think about it like, how did I survive? I guess God really gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers, because talking about it, for some reason I thought I would get emotional, but no, I'm not getting really emotional about it. But while I was going through it, it was hell. And the saddest part is that I had other friends that, embarked on their first year of nursing, and they did not have to deal with any of that by any means necessary. Like, that was not their reality. It hurt me to know that I went to school with some of my mates, my classmates, and they were basically thriving and doing well in their work environment. Their main stressors was just pretty much honing in on their skills, solidifying their skills, sharpening their skills, and just being a more competent nurse and not dealing with someone that's bullying them. So that was quite disheartening. One takeaway that I did have from that experience is how important a union is, because if I didn't have a union, she would probably have gotten away with having me work full-time hours as a part-time employee with no benefits. She probably would have gotten away with telling me to leave the facility. Because she was such a horrible and mean manager to everyone, I think she might have like one or two favorites. The team and the nurses were essentially close to each other. So even though she was really mean to me, my coworkers were essentially, like 90% of them, it felt like family. They were really nice, really sweet. The morale was among us was amazing. Like, it was really, really good. Like, we really stuck together, helped each other out. You know, whether it was a cold, a patient was crashing, you needed help. No one would leave until everyone's work was done. Like that was my basically my silver lining and my saving grace. And like I said, my assistant head nurse reached out to me and put me on my P's and Q's that this lady was. I was on her radar in a very negative way. I had a patient that was very happy with the care that I gave her and was so happy that I was advocating for her to the doctors, and she wrote me this excellent review. She asked me for a pen and paper. She's like, "Oh my God, you're so sweet." She asked me for a pen and paper to write a review, but I was such a, as a new nurse, you just kind of want to finish and I used to work, at that time I was working 5 days a week, 7 to 3. And at that time you had to do the same amount of documentation, get all your medications out, and do all of your nursing tasks and documentation in a shorter period of time because you're working 8-hour shifts. So my main goal was to just like get my work done on time so I could leave on time, patients are safe, everything's good, without this lady attacking me verbally in any way. When this lady's like, "Oh, do you have a pen and paper so I can write your review?" I'm like, "Lady, I don't have time for this review. Like, a lady, like, I'm just doing my job. I'm happy I'm happy that you're very appreciative, but it's totally fine." So this lady finds a pen and paper for someone else. She writes out me this well-written review, but it was such a well-written review. Good verbiage, good diction. You could tell she was highly educated, and she gave it to me. And she was like, "Oh, I want to give it to my manager." "Who's your manager?" She asked me who my manager is, and I knew deep down in my heart, if I told her who my real manager was, she would probably rip it up and throw it in the garbage. So I lied and told her that my manager was my assistant head nurse. She gave it to the assistant head nurse. They submitted it to nursing office, and I received a GEM award for it. So that's how much of a toxic person this manager was. I couldn't even share my wins with a manager, and I was not even a year as a nurse when I received that acknowledgement from a patient. So yeah, aside from trying to become a competent or proficient and skilled nurse, and how it was so difficult to do this as a new nurse, while dealing with this toxic environment, back then when you were a new nurse, essentially you kind of got the worst assignment. Just like you kind of have the last dibs on getting your vacation time when you really want it, you get like the worst assignments. So your patients are more acute. I forgot to mention that, and that was kind of like the culture of the unit. It's like the new nurse, give her the full care patient, the vented patient, the patient with multiple wounds, the patient that's crashing, the patient that's respiratory status is not good, the patient that's about to code. So imagine dealing with those type of heavy assignments as a new nurse, plus trying to prioritize, delegate, document, get your medication, coordinate with pharmacy, coordinate with a physical therapist, advocate for your patient, talk to the doctors, and then on top of that, you're dealing with this toxic environment and a manager that is going through your work or going behind your back, looking through your work with a fine teeth comb to find something on you. I had to pretty much leave. Like, I essentially was forced to quit, and I was forced to quit. And as soon as I got my year, for safety reasons, for the protection of my nursing license, for the protection of my sanity, I had to go. Everything happens for a reason, but if I wanted to stay, if I liked everything else about that hospital and I wanted to stay and I wanted to flourish there and I wanted to plant my seed there and grow there, that was just not a reality or option for me, which is so unacceptable. Moving on, I ended up going to a bigger hospital, working for a magnet hospital in the city, a bigger hospital, and there I did not experience that level of bullying. Even if there was any type of passive aggressiveness, it was nothing compared to what I experienced before. It was just minuscule. Joy does come in the morning. God doesn't give you more than you can bear, and I was able to see my light at the end of the tunnel, which was amazing. It was priceless. It was worth it. That's my bullying toxic story. I think everything happens for a reason. A lot of our challenges in life, we don't understand why they happen, when they do, why we're going through this. God, why me? But in time, it is revealed, and you are able to not only be a testimony, but to help others navigate through the same situations, and you can be their angel and refuge and help them to kind of work through those situations, problem solve those relationships, absolve those relationships, dissolve those relationships, resolve those situations. I say relationships, situations, yeah. So we're gonna help. So you help them absolve, resolve, dissolve, get rid of those situations, navigate through it. So yeah, in my experience, a lot of my bullying has been with my superiors, not my peers, but my superiors. Because honestly, peers will try it, but I think because I have dealt with the bigger fish, that when they try it, it's just so futile. Like, it's just like I kind of laugh it off, have a good day, next. Because you don't sign my check, you don't make my schedule, you didn't hire me, you can't fire me, in a sense like that. But my bullying encounters have been with people that can fire me. So that's what makes it so stark and so real, that, and it's so painful, so hurtful, devastating, is that the people that chose to bully me are superiors that have the power to fire me. So that has been that, yeah, that has the power to fire me. So that has been my challenge with that. But I wake up every day. I continue to show up. I continue to show up, show out. I make sure my work speaks for itself, and with God and faith and strength and spirituality and mental strength. Recently, I had one of my supporters on YouTube, or followers on YouTube, tell me about a situation that she was experiencing bullying. And I'm just gonna, and I'll pop up the comment if you guys want to read it in the corner. Pop it up here or here, one of them. But basically, if you are experiencing bullying, which is unacceptable and you should not be experiencing it, is you have to educate yourself and you have to document. You have to know the policies of where you work. It is an infringement, but you have to verify that, right? So you have to know your policies. You have to document. You have to dot your I's, cross your T's. If there is a union, reach out to your union rep. Know your union reps. Know how to access them. If you don't have a union rep, you have to document and have a paper trail. You have to follow your chain of command. So you have to go above that person, and hopefully that person isn't corrupt. Hopefully they do the right thing, and hopefully they follow policies and procedures. And if you cannot get through to them, there is HR. If you cannot get through to them, I mean, you can always take legal action, which is more feasible and accessible to some more than others. And then sometimes you have to look at the bigger picture. In my situation, I needed them more than they needed me. I needed that year. I couldn't have left. It would not have been in my best interest to leave that facility with a less than year of experience trying to find another job. It would have, at the time, it was very hard to get a job as a nurse without experience, and my first job was part-time. They didn't even hire me full-time, so it was quite difficult to get that first job. And I knew I needed that year experience to take my career to the next level, to give myself more opportunity, more options. So I knew I had to bite that bullet. So you have to look at the bigger picture. You have to weigh your options. See, you have to weigh that. You have to figure that out. Like, are you the asset, or are they the asset in this situation at this current time? What do I need to do? Are there other options? Can I move to a different unit where that's more comfortable? If you're getting a lot of pushback, if you're not getting any progress or seeing any results from your grievances, and unfortunately, you may have to, as unfortunate, as unacceptable, as much as I hate to say it, you may, if it's in your best interest, you may have to leave, you may have to transfer, you may have to see if there are other options. And sometimes there are bigger blessings waiting for you. Sometimes this is happening because God sees wants to open a better door for you. Or sometimes it's God's testing your ability and telling you, like, listen, you need to learn how to stand up for yourself. You need to stand your ground. You need to be an example for other people that are going through this. And he may use you as a tool to help other people that are going through this situation in that specific scenario and in that specific environment. And so it is not best for you to leave. It's best for you to stand your ground and stay there. So it's multifactorial, it's multifaceted, it's very complex, but overall it should not be tolerated. Yeah, so overall it should not be tolerated. It is unacceptable, and I made a vow to myself once I experienced that. I know they say people that have experienced trauma kind of displaces it on others and keep that toxic cycle. I promised myself, I promised God, I just promised myself that I would never, ever, ever be that person, be that bully anyone. I've trained nurses, I've precepted nurses. I've never really had a managerial role, but I promise to never reciprocate that, never give that, promise to never be that mean, cruel nurse, disrespectful, speak to someone in a derogatory tone. I've made the vow to continue to be respectful, foster a healthy work environment, and if anyone has any of those grievances, help them to navigate through that. And that's partly why I'm making this video. I didn't plan for this to be my next video, but I did make a reel about bullying, and then I got some feedback how other people are experiencing it and they want to know how to navigate through it. And I hope this video has helped. I hope help people to feel relatable, to know that we're all kind of living the same life unfortunately. But again, bullying is not acceptable. You don't have to tolerate it. See your bigger picture, assess your situation adequately, reach out to follow your chain of commands, know your policy, access your policy, and do what's best for you and what's best for your patients. Because if you can't take care of yourself, if you are not in the best mental state, you cannot effectively take care of patients, and it can affect your patient outcome, and that is not good. You are in this position to protect, to provide safe care, to promote health for your patients. So I hope this video has helped someone. Comment down below if you have been bullied and how you navigated it, so we can talk about this, dialogue about this, or if you're experiencing bullying, or in your field. It doesn't have to be nursing. If in the workplace, and what strategies you use. If there's any tips that you have for anyone that has experienced any type of bullying in the workplace. So yeah, let's talk about it. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm sorry that this video is super long, but it was just a lot because it happened. So yeah, so comment, like, share, subscribe. Don't forget to hit your notification bell, because I have a lot of nurse practitioner advice videos, a lot of other related day in the life vlogs, a lot of nursing and nurse practitioner content that is coming on the way. But yeah, so yeah, until next time, bye guys.